Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com. In this tutorial we're going to look at the value annotation. So I've created this little test project here where I've got a bean defined. It's this class robot, and I've turned on component scanning in my XML, and I've defined this as a component. So we've got a robot bean, and also in my app here, in fact, I'm getting that bean and I'm calling the speak method of this robot bean, which just outputs the ID and a text field called speech here of the robot. So let's just run that, and I've given default values to the ID of 0, and the speech field, I've given it the value of hello, so it's being output down here. Now we've got set methods for both of those values, and what I want to show you is, supposing we want to supply hard-coded values here for these properties. And in fact, the values don't have to be hard-coded. We can do all kinds of things with them, which we'll get onto when we start looking at Spring expression language shortly. But for now, I just want to show you the simplest possible usage of the value annotation. So here's a field that we want to supply a value for. And right before the actual definition here of the argument that we're supplying, I'm going to type @ and value, capital V of course as usual, and around brackets as usual for annotation, and in double quotes I'm going to supply the value, let's say 1138. So the default is 0. We want to supply this 1138 for this ID value, and notice that the integer value here, it's an integer value, but it still has to be in double quotes like a string to work with this annotation. But don't worry, because it's going to get translated into an integer, and this will work. Let's click on the error and import the value annotation. Save that. Now if I run it now, it's not going to do anything different, because we have to say that this field is auto-wired somehow or other. And I could use the let's use auto-wired, or I could use inject. It doesn't really matter. So I'll show you this with inject, or we could use resource as well. So if I run this now, let's find the right run configuration, then we've set that field, and it works just the same with resource and just the same with auto-wired. In fact, I'll go back to auto-wired, since after all this is the kind of native Spring version here. Let's import the right import. Let's set a string value as well before we leave this tutorial. So I'll make this second property also auto-wired, and here I'll say value, and in double quotes let's give some text for this robot to speak. Let's say I'll be back, and save that and run the program. And you can see that we've successfully wired a value into this property. So this is something that's sometimes useful, and it gives you kind of the equivalent of setting a property in the XML, but with annotations. And we're going to move on probably next to looking at Spring expression language, which will help us to make this value annotation in the end even far more flexible still. So until next time, happy coding.